Hi, and welcome to
a couple reviews.
Today we're going to talk about the new film Joker.
Yeah, 2019 Joker.
Directed by Todd Phillips, who is known for the Hangover trilogy and Due Date and Old School.
So not exactly a serious director, or at least we didn't think so.
And then this film is really, really fantastic and obviously very serious. So good job, Todd Phillips.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix is the main character, Arthur Fleck, who will become the Joker. And I think you will hear from us and from literally everyone who sees this film that he is insanely phenomenal in this entire film.
Yeah, especially since the entire film is pretty much just his performance, mostly.
Yeah, it's a character study, essentially.
Yeah.
And then we have Robert De Niro as Murray Franklin, who's the night show host that he really looks up to. And you and I didn't know Robert De Niro was going to be in this film, so when he first showed up, you and I both looked at each other with big-ass grins.
It was just a big surprise to see him in that role.
Yeah, and he was also really good.
Yep.
Everyone in this film, I think, no one was losing. I think in this film, everyone was doing a really good job acting. Obviously, Joaquin is insanely incredible, but there was no bad acting.
Yeah, I didn't think there was any actor that dropped the ball at all in this one.
Yeah. So we also have Frances Conroy, who is Arthur's mom / her name is Penny, and she was also, I think, really phenomenal in the whole film.
Yeah, she played her role just right.
I always think whenever there's an older woman on film and they're not the main character, that often they get regulated to a very flat character, I'm the mom, or I'm the whatever. And with Penny, we got glimpses of a whole person, both with her acting as well as the story. The story gives you more background on her that we don't get to visually see the acting done. But I think when you find it's obviously spoiler alert.
Yep, full spoilers.
Full spoilers are on the table. Because I don't think you can really talk about this film without spoiling it, if you really want to talk about it.
Yeah, there's not much to talk about without spoiling it.
Yeah. There's a whole arc with Arthur's parentage. Actually, I think that's one of the major arcs, really.
Yeah.
It's a really driving force for the entire story. So this whole time, his mom's been writing letters to Thomas Wayne, who is
Bruce Wayne's dad.
Exactly.
Batman's dad.
Yeah. Who, Wayne Empire was a massive thing and Bruce inherited it, so obviously Thomas Wayne is at least part of building it if he didn't build it himself. I don't know if that was an inherited thing as well. So she worked for them as a housemaid 30 years ago, and of course Arthur's around 30, even though that boy looks like he could be 50 in moments. Arthur looks Arthur's in bad shape.
Phoenix lost 50 pounds for the role.
He's so gaunt.
So he's super gaunt and emaciated. So, it's impossible to tell his age.
And life has been hard on Arthur, and, he doesn't look good. It's not good. Joaquin Phoenix as a person, very handsome. Arthur Fleck, disgusting.
I wouldn't say he's disgusting, but...
Yeah, that's a little bit of it. But not handsome. Not good looking. No positive traits on the outside. Or on the inside, probably. But there's this whole arc with his parenthood, and so Penny's been writing all these letters, and she's upset that they never get a letter back, and he's why are you writing them? She's because if Thomas Wayne knew we were poor, he would do something. And he's why? And then he finally, reads one of the letters that she's sending out, because she doesn't leave the apartment. It seems like she doesn't even go downstairs to mail the letters.
Yeah, she doesn't even check the mail.
Yeah. And he reads one of the letters, and it's Arthur is your son, and he's really great, and, we need help, and blah, blah, blah. And they handled that scene, I think, really smartly, because it cuts from him reading it to, a flash of her running and hiding and locking, herself in the bathroom.
I'm not going to talk to you until you stop being angry.
Yeah. Like a child. Arthur is definitely, taking care of her now. She's older, as we said, doesn't leave the house, and she just, he gives her baths, and he, brings her food and her medicine, I'm assuming. So he's like the parent here at this point.
Yeah.
So that's like this whole thing, and I'm like, oh shit, Joker's Batman's fucking brother, and like that's a whole revelation. And if that is how the movie was if the movie just stopped with that being the thing, that's a whole new world of Batman and shit to like deal with. But the movie's like, fucking just kidding. And
it turns out he's not even related to his mom. He's adopted, and she's just, I don't know, she's
delusions.
Delusional.
So he goes to like, we get that kind of, we get that might be what's happening when he goes to like, he sneaks into like the opera theater and he goes to like confront his quote unquote father, and then he's like, your mom's fucking crazy. That's not what happened. You're adopted. And he's like, no. And then he goes and finds, steals a file and finds that is in fact the case. Here's a weird sidebar. As someone who's really into true crime, I know that Ted Bundy seemed kind of okay with life, and then he found out that he was like his sister's son instead, because she was, I think, really young and stuff like that. So there seems to be some sort of breaking point when something that seems like such a fundamental part of who you are, like Penny is his mother, is just not true.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, they pulled on a lot of different real-life things to create this character.
Definitely has daddy issues. Abandonment issues.
Yeah, I'd say abandonment issues.
Yeah.
Talking about him going to
Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, it's not called Arkham Asylum, though,
it's
in
like
the
Arkham
movie. It's
State Hospital?
Yeah, it's something like that. But it's clearly Arkham Asylum. I guess he had stayed there before, he said. But he's going back there to check on his mom. He's talking to some guy who he's just, a clerk there, administrative assistant or something, who went down to the basement to get the old records or whatever. And he's going over him, and the guy starts to realize, I probably shouldn't be telling this guy stuff. But then he tries to snatch it through the thing, which is it's a good scene altogether. But as when he first snatches it and tries to yank it, the guy's like, "Come on, man," or something like that. But he says it exactly like. Have you seen the video of the guy who's about to eat a Big Mac and some guy slaps it out of his hand?
No.
He's like, "Come on, cuz." He says it. He says it exactly like that, and it made me smile in the theater because I'm a fucking idiot.
I love that scene so much. I feel like that as a standalone scene, just to give someone like a taste of this film, is such a good scene, because that guy is like, again, a tiny role. He's in one scene. He's perfect.
Yeah.
Again, casting is so good because he's just like, the guy's like, oh, this is my mom. I want to look into her whatever. I want her information. She's in the hospital. And
there's a lot of content in that scene. There's a lot of stuff.
But so the guy does it, and he's like you said, he's like essentially reading him the file, and then he kind of trails off as his eyes like read farther ahead, and he's like, adopted son, like child abuse, stuff like that. Maybe I shouldn't just be telling this guy this thing. He's like, I don't know, man, I can't really read, I can't give you this without a court thing. Your mom can sign the rights over to you. I just need a signature. And he's like, come on, man. But I also, when Joker first walks in, when Arthur walks in, he is like, so what are you gotta do to get locked up in here, huh? Be blah, 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 be crazy. And then the guy's like, yeah, I guess. And then he, kind of starts to confess to the clerk about the 3 murders on the subway that, is really, a big trigger. It's the first time Arthur is, really violent with anyone. He shoots and kills 3 guys who were assholes. On a subway, and then they're unsolved murders, but they were wealthy guys who worked for the Wayne Corporation, and that's coincidental. It's a lot of coincidences that just build and build and build.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because the city's already at this tipping point where it's completely gone to shit.
Yeah, there's literally garbage everywhere. It's a massive issue. No one's taking there's a garbage strike, so there's just garbage bags everywhere on the street.
It's the main problem with the city is income inequality. Mm-hmm.
But then, so he acts like, I'm not crazy, blah, blah. But we know he's been in there in the past, in Arkham State Hospital. Mm-hmm. And then he also kind of does this thing consistently throughout the film where he kind of mimics back what someone does.
Yeah, which is just a natural thing.
I know, I do that a lot.
Well, everybody does, but he especially relies on it because he doesn't really know how to interact with anybody. Which actually is one of my favorite things is he's got the two laughs. He's got the
the laugh that is like essentially a disability.
Yeah, it's a tick almost.
Yeah.
And then there's the his other crazy sounding laugh. That's just whenever he is in a situation where he thinks he should be reacting to something that should be funny. He does that really crazy fake laugh.
That's really
and
fake.
Then it just ends. It's abrupt. Super fake sound, and then it just ends.
Whereas like a lot of real laughter like kind of fades off, or it's just really fake. And then his other laughter is literally an uncontrollable, like you said, tick. That is essentially like played off as a disability almost, because like no one can take you seriously.
Which is a real disability. And I think he plays it really well because you can tell that he's like always very unhappy when he's laughing like that. He's like
grimacing.
Yeah, he's grimacing. He's trying to fight it. He's
like almost like coughing and clearing his throat to like kind of fight it back. It feels like. And like he even has a card that we see that's laminated that's like, I have a condition with the laughing, blah blah blah, and then it's like, please return this card.
Yeah, and which is smart as a narrative device to explain that. You don't have to have like some weird conversation
with a doctor or something.
Yeah, some other way to set up. It's just
this is a part of life,
and you learn with just some random person.
Yeah,
like
so literally a random encounter.
Yeah, I thought that was a really smart way to do it.
This whole film does a lot of storytelling by showing rather than telling. A lot of the times, like even when we get like the letter from Penny to Mr. Wayne and the file on Penny, where we are being like we're reading what they want to tell us. It's done in a really good way. Like with Penny, I think we're getting like flashbacks to a young Penny, like in Arkham, and then for the letter to Mr. Wayne, it's very like parts are underlined, and the camera doesn't let you read the whole letter. It's like zoom in on this sentence, and then like bam, her running away from him. Like it's very compacted, whereas you're not reading a long thing, you're not being told a long story. Because this movie has a lot to do.
How long is the movie? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't. I think it's about 2 hours now.
It doesn't feel very long.
But a lot happens.
It never really feels like it's slow, though.
No. Even in the like quieter moments.
Which are most of the moments.
Yeah. Everything. But at the same time, like I said, a lot of shit happens in this film. And for like, yeah, it moves. It doesn't start. It's not like constantly boom, boom, boom moving, but like, even if something isn't necessarily happening, every scene feels like relevant and important.
Yeah. I think canonically, Joker has a bunch of different origin stories. Like, it's one of those things. I think most superheroes kind of have a few different iterations of their origin stories just because different comic writers take over and
want a different, like, effect or version or
whatever.
whatever.
Different take on it. So that makes the Joker pretty good for an origin story because you can kind of do whatever you want with it.
As long as he ends up as the Joker. And as someone who feels like they could be the Joker as it goes on.
And it doesn't even have to be a pre-existing Joker. Just something that, hits or checks a few of the boxes of that character.
And it's also such a visually, like, really intense film because, like, the coloring it is generally kind of very washed out and almost, like, gray. And, like, when you're in the city, it's very gray.
Yeah.
And most of the film feels very gray.
Yeah. I wonder if that's just because of the settings of just the shitty Gotham City, or do you think it's, like, certain things are washed out digitally?
I don't know if it's done digitally, but I think the palette is very on purpose. Like, because he wears very, like, not really dirty, but, like, dingy clothes.
Drab.
Yeah. And then when he's full Joker, he's in a very, like, distinct, brighter colored suit.
But even then, it's more I like the colors
subdued.
It shows. It's like, what is it?
Rust and, like, mustard yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just, like, a level of attention to every aspect of this film that is continually impressive. Talking about his clothes, I mean, he is in... Well, he's probably not in every scene in clown shoes, but the way he moves, even when, like, just walking... Like,
he's only in clown shoes for a few of the scenes.
I know, but
and when he's Joker, he doesn't have the clown shoes anymore.
You're right. So early on, when he's dressed as a clown for his job, from where he's lent out via the talent agency Ha-Ha's, which I really love. He is wearing clown shoes.
And he has to run in them, too, which must be so difficult.
Yeah, and then he does, like, a slide thing and almost get hit by a car, which we did see an interview with.
Which is a stunt double for those.
But
all the running is just
all the running is him. Watching when we saw the movie and that slide happened, that
slide out was so good.
It's so good and it's so quick, and his recovery is really good. And then, but yeah, just the way he runs, the way he has to move in those clown shoes, and then when he's a clown, he kind of stands straighter. Like, he's kind of...
Because he's a character.
Well, yeah, but it just seems like it's like the only time he seems, like, kind of happy.
No, he's in character as the clown.
Yeah. I get that, but I also feel like Arthur is actually happy when he's like, being the clown. Like, when he's entertaining other people. I feel like that's, like... You know? I feel like there's a reason the Joker keeps his clown makeup.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
But and then when he's, like, out of clown costume, he's very, like, he's so calm. His shoulders are very pulled forward, and he's head down. And then when he's the Joker, at the end, he's
strutting and dancing.
Yeah, it's very confident.
Which is a thing for like a lot of real people. Is like when you feel like you're in character,
when you feel good about yourself, you walk differently.
Oh, not just that, you act completely differently if you're like quote unquote in character.
Mm-hmm. And also just if you're happy, if you are confident, you walk differently. Like, if I feel confident in an outfit, I walk differently than when I'm uncomfortable or something.
Yeah.
The one of the, like, later scenes when he is now the Joker, and he's running from two cops who've been kind of on his tail off and on the whole film.
Which I think is maybe one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yes, when he's on the subway.
The really long, because it's like a really long chase scene that is just so intense the whole time.
Oh my god.
And so many good little parts to it.
Yeah. So he's full Joker now. He has done...
And a crazy payoff by the end.
Oh my god, yeah. And so he's full Joker now, and he's running from the two cops who've kind of been on his tail this whole time for the triple homicide. He like gets on a subway train. Subway is kind of a big part of this because Gotham is very like New York.
Yeah, it's definitely supposed to be New York.
Yeah, and because of like all the shit that's been going down, there's going to be a massive rally, and all these people are wearing these clown masks, like plastic masks that you slide up and down on your face. To look like
well, some of them have face painting.
Some of them have face painting, but a lot of them all have this one mask that is clearly mass-produced.
Yeah.
Although I will say, even in this crowd, you will see people, like you said, with face paint, or people with just a different clown mask on. That is, they already had one, or they found one cheaper, and they didn't buy the like one that's supposed to be specific to the thing, which I love as like a subtle detail that they didn't just put everyone in those masks. Because you show up to any rally when anything's supposed to happen, and everyone's got like a slight version of it.
Yeah.
And
I thought that was a really interesting side story.
Yeah. And he's running through the thing, and there's all these other clowns wearing masks that look so much like his face paint. And it's such a good scene, because he's just running through, and then he takes a mask off of a guy, and the guy like doesn't see him do it, and he turns around and like...
No, he pushes him into another guy, and then... Arthur just kind of moves away, and the other guy comes around and is like mad that the guy pushed someone against him. They start fighting, and then that riles everybody up right as the two detectives come through the thing, and the whole riot is like definitely anti-establishment to start off with. So two officers coming in and trying to like impose,
like they're literally telling people like take off your mask, and they're all like here to basically fuck the government, like fuck the police level of anger. So they're like just not. So like you see the cops like kind of pushing people's masks off and shit, and then they get like fucking they see him. They see Joker. And they're like, oh shit, and they, like, go for him. But, like, at that time, the crowd is, like, angry and annoyed enough with them that they're just, like, go around them and essentially, like, beat them up, like, overtake the cops.
Yeah, I think they beat them to, like, critical level. But
yeah,
I think they're in the hospital afterwards.
Yeah, we hear that later. And, like, they get pushed out of the subway when it stops and they're on the ground, the cops with all the people over them. And you see Joker, like, who has one of those faces.
He takes his mask off and does a little dance.
He does a little dance, like, in a way where he's just watching them get beat up. And I assume they're also, one of them at least can, like, see him.
Yeah.
And it's such a crazy scene. I will say I was uncomfortable for a lot of this film, which is, like, on purpose.
Which is the intended effect.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. There's a whole, also a side story with, Sophie, who's played by Zazie Beetz, which is a great name.
That's her real name?
She's beautiful, and she's got a
her real
great name.
Is Zazie
That
Beetz?
is what it is on IMDb.
Okay.
And they live in the same apartment building, and, like, they have this... He is so bad at talking to anyone.
Yeah.
Obviously, women also is, like, a big deal, because she's, like, pretty or whatever. And they have, like, a weird moment where they're talking and he's really awkward, and then he makes, like, a comment way too late that's weird, and then she kind of gives him, like, this small, probably awkward smile, and then, like, hurries into her apartment, and then he spends the next day following her, and I was like, please stop. Please stop.
Yeah. And then they end up, like, going on a few dates and stuff.
Well, no, she goes to his apartment at the end of the day, and she's like, were you following me? And he's like, yes.
Confronts him.
Yeah. But she's, like, into it.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he, like, kisses her and they go on all these dates, and I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're like, what?
What woman is happy to be followed?
And then you find out that none of that happened.
It's all in his head. I mean, she exists. But, like, they don't have a relationship.
Yeah. They don't hardly even... She doesn't hardly even know who he is, other than he lives a few doors down.
Yeah. Like, she's seen him in the apartment building. Like, their first encounter happened in real life, I'm sure. And then he followed her, I'm sure it was also real. And then everything else is fake.
Yeah.
This movie does, like, fake outs really well. In a way that never feels like you, the audience, are being tricked or cheated, really. Because Arthur is in the same boat as the audience is, I think.
Yeah.
And that's really well done. I kind of want to talk about the hair dyeing scene also really quick, because it made me so uncomfortable. It made me so unhappy. He's like full on Joker. Like, he's transforming fully into Joker. Like, he's killed his mother, realizes his relationship with Sophie's fake, and he's like, his like plan is to go on the Murray Franklin show that he's been invited to as like basically as a joke. Because there was a video of his stand-up that went really badly, and the guy called him a joker.
Yeah.
His hero, this television host guy, Robert De Niro. And he's, like, ready to go full Joker. His plan is to be like, knock, knock. And then when Murray asks who's there, he's going to kill himself. Like, we see him practicing this with a gun. And so he's, like, dyeing his hair green, but his hair's already dark, and he doesn't bleach it, and so this weird green. And you see just, like, he's, like, in just his underwear, and you can see just, like, the dye just draining down his back and drying on his skin, and I was like, oh, God, that feels so gross. I have dyed my hair enough to know I hated it.
You hate all water on your back.
I really do. That is just a personal thing. That's so weird. It's a weird personal thing about me. But I hated it. So his hair's already dyed, and we get another. I want to talk about this other insane scene, because I was just like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He has his mother's died because he killed her, but no one knows he killed her because she was in the hospital. And the two guys from Ha Ha's, which she's been fired from, come and visit. One of them is a little person, and then one of them is a big guy who gave him the gun and essentially framed him to get him fired. He's a piece of shit. He's also... Ian clocked this. He is also...
Sebastian from Furs by Sebastian from the show Maniac.
Which at some point we'll have to talk about.
Which is Hope's favorite episode from that whole show.
I would watch that episode by itself. It doesn't need context. It's so fucking good. At some point we'll have to talk about Maniac, because that show was great. But yeah, you clocked that. and I was really proud of you. But
I was like, I had to lean in. I was like, Sebastian.
And at first,
and then you're like, and just like went back to sitting, and then like 10 seconds later it hit her. She's like,
well, because I thought you meant like Sebastian, like the crab. And I was like...
Like, that was the voice actor?
Yeah, or like for maybe the new action movie or something. And I was like, what? Okay.
You're just like,
well, we're in a movie. I'm not going to like fully question you. And then, then it hit me that it was Sebastian by First by Sebastian or whatever. And I was like, oh shit. But he's an asshole. He's essentially the reason that Joker got fired. And they come and the little person has like a bottle of some kind of alcohol because it's in a brown bag. He's like, we thought we'd come and, like, help you be okay. And he's, like, pretty happy, actually. And then, does he say anything, really, to Sebastian? Before he full-on attacks him?
Nothing about that. It just says, like, they're like, we heard what happened about your mom. And, are you doing okay? Yeah, I'm actually doing really good. And then, just out of nowhere, just... kills him.
Scissors to the neck initially.
Mm-hmm.
And we see him take the scissors and put them in his back pocket before he goes to open the door. But, like, this was, as far as I can tell, an unexpected. Right. So it was like, was he just going to kill whoever was there? Or was I think it was just like a...
I think it was supposed to be just in case it was the detectives.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got too. I was like, oh, fuck the detectives. And he just fucking murders this guy really, really brutally. And this film... kind of like Midsommar in a very different way and tonally, but they do not shy away from the violence, and there are moments where the camera just stays on whatever is happening for longer than is comfortable, where you expect a movie to cut to the next scene or cut to something else. They stay there every now and then for like just like a second too long. Second longer than like a normal film would. And it's really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But the little person is there and he's like, oh my god, holy shit. And Joker's like, you can go, I'm not going to hurt you. And he's like, oh, what? And he's like, just, you can go. And then the little person, like, has to, like, walk past Sebastian's dead body to get to the door. And he's like...
Sebastian.
He is Sebastian. I don't care what his other name is. And he's like, oh, God. He's so uncomfortable. But, like, Joker had locked the chain.
Yeah, what is that lock called? The chain lock thing.
It has a name, but I don't know.
Sure it does.
Is it latchkey?
It easily could be. It could be anything.
But yeah, he's locked that behind them, and we saw him do that because he obviously was like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker. And the little person can't reach it, so it's like, help him out.
Ask Arthur to unlock it.
And he's like, fuck, I'm sorry, and all that stuff. And it's such a uncomfortable scene. And also, like not long after, pretty much right after is when he is full Joker and he's going to go to be on the show and the cops come after
right
him.
After that.
Yeah. So I assume the little person was like, hey, I saw a thing. You should probably handle this. And then he is having just the best time. Once he's the Joker, he is having a great fuck. Because Arthur is pretty miserable almost this entire film.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's fucking stoked.
Yeah, he's having a great time.
He's dancing a lot.
Which the Joker always is.
It's true. The Joker always seems to be having a good time, except for when Batman fucks shit up. And Batman's not around yet.
And even when Batman fucks shit up, he's still...
generally okay.
Still having a pretty good time about it.
Yeah. He's very good-natured in a terrible way. Good-natured is probably not the term. So there's a lot of dancing in this film.
Like weird
interpretive dancing almost.
Yeah.
And it seems to happen in weird moments. Like
just like slow, expressive dancing.
Yeah. Like the first time we really see it is right after he killed the 3 guys in the subway. And then he bolts. And he runs to like a weird public restroom that's like in a park or something.
I don't think that's the first time we see it, because I think the first time we see it is in his apartment.
Yes.
Where he's dancing. He just has the gun. Scene. He has the gun for the first time, and he's like dancing really weird with his shirt off. And he's like pretending he's in a club, and like people are noticing how good of a dancer he is.
Including a woman who he like does a voice for in a different move for.
That's right, yeah.
And I was like, oh god, I hate this. But at the same time, like, what lonely person or sad teenager, like, doesn't do some, hopefully, silent form of this. You know what I mean? Like, we all, like, role play shit in our head. But to watch someone else do it is really cringy. And really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But then he does, but like, at that time I was like, okay, this is weird, I don't like it. But then he does it after he kills the 3 guys in that bathroom by himself, and it's very, like, the other one made sense to me.
Because he's still in makeup.
Mm-hmm. From his job. Which is why, like, the whole clown revolution thing is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a very slow, weird, interpretive dance. And I was, it's such a weird scene. It's also a great scene, but it's a weird scene. Because, like, with the club scene, I was like, okay, this is cringy and uncomfortable, but I get it on some level, you know? This dance, post-murder, alone in a weird public bathroom,
it's like
I don't get it, on, like, a personal level.
It's like he's a human peacock, just, like, showing off.
Yes.
I mean, that's all I can, like, relate that to is, like, an animal's, like, dance.
But he's not doing it for anyone else.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I guess it's just because it makes him feel a certain way. I
either
just
makes
don't know.
it, or it's a way that he can express his feelings, and, like, that's the only way he thinks he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or can do it. And then, when he's full Joker, right before the cops start chasing him, he has this great, like, little down the steps dance that is really kind of joyous, even though he just did another murder.
Almost like a Singing in the Rain-esque dance.
Yes. Yeah. Little soft shoe, you know? I mean, it's a great scene. And then I think the last, like, scene section I really want to talk about, just because, like, it's, again, uncomfortable and insane, and perfectly done, is when he does go on the Murray Franklin show with Robert De Niro. And he does a weird dance right before the curtain call.
And he's on the show because he did stand up at one point and flopped really hard.
And that was recorded.
And Murray put that recording on his show to, like, make fun of him.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about that clip, actually, is that when you're seeing that scene happen in, like, real time with him, it's like he kind of is getting laughs on like, his jokes and stuff like that. But then when they show it for Murray to make fun of him, there's no laughing.
Or very little.
Yeah, so it's like we saw what he thought was happening or how he interpreted it, but that's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does a weird dance before curtain call. He has a weird dance when he first gets out of, like, onto, like, the public stage area. And,
just, like, super confidence.
Yeah, he's having a great time. And Murray have this weird conversation, and he keeps calling him, like, Murray, like, very enunciated, like, Murray.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, why are you doing this? And at first it's this kind of, like, you know, I'm a jokey person, blah, blah, blah. And then it gets, like, weirdly serious, because he's in that makeup on the night of the protest, and that makeup is essentially the protest makeup, which is also just his look, but no one knows that yet. And he's like, Murray's like, he said it wasn't like a protest political thing and all this stuff, and then Joker kind of digs into him after kind of coming back, after kind of getting needled. Do you remember what Murray says to him to kind of really set him off?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just regular.
It's really
just
tonal.
Regular game, or not game show. Regular nightly show riffing.
Yeah.
Type stuff.
But it's also very tonal, and you can tell that there's no level of respect from Murray for him.
Absolutely. No, he's definitely on the show so that he can
be the butt of a joke.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, you know, I'm what you get when you fucking ignore downtrodden people and treat them like shit. And then he admits to the killing on the subway killing. This is live television. and then he shoots Murray in the face.
Yeah.
And then he just shoots him again. And then it looks like he almost shoots him for a third time, and he's like, fuck it.
Yeah. And then he just kind of skedoodles off.
Yeah, it comes up to the camera first, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But
yeah, essentially just stands there, you know, kind of has his own time.
He has a little dance,
kind of like skip dances off, and then I guess he gets apprehended by the police.
Yeah,
because the next scene
then
is
he's in a cop car.
Him in the back of a cop car, and he's like driving past, and the riots have gotten like way, way worse.
Like
there are
city
cars
on fire
and stuff. Yeah.
People are just they're just breaking car windows and into buildings and looting. It's a full riot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's seeing it, and he's like kind of giggling to himself. And the cop who's driving him is like, "Shut up." I'm sure, because there are 2 cops that are in critical condition from earlier, from the subway section we talked about. And I was like, "There's no way the movie ends like this, right?" Like, even though you're getting to the end of it because he's full Joker now, the movie's not ending like that.
Yeah, because they set up the Joker, but the Joker always has followers. That's the thing about the Joker. The Joker always has goons, and
they're really he doesn't give a shit about these goons. Like, he will straight up just murder a goon if they're in the way, or if he thinks they're going to talk, or whatever, and they're really disposable to him.
Mm-hmm. So, the idea of where do those come from is pretty much the last scene.
Mm-hmm. You get to, all these people are really on his side, and the cop car gets bashed into the side by a truck,
by an ambulance.
You're right.
Someone driven by one of the protest guys.
Yeah, and you assume the cop is dead or at least completely incapacitated. And he's really badly done, but then they bust the window of the car cop and pull him out,
drag him out, put him on the hood of the car,
in a Christ-like kind of almost moment, which they did.
Everybody's and then. Yeah, comes to, stands up,
cheering,
starts dancing in front of everybody, and that's how the movie ends.
And he's also bleeding in the mouth because he got fucked up in the car, and he wipes because his red grin has kind of faded with time and whatever, and he with his blood makes the grin again on his face.
And I just remember that's actually not how the movie ends.
You're right.
There's an extra scene.
There's an extra scene.
Yeah.
Take us through it, or not take us through it, but what do you think? Do you think
it easily could have ended there? It's just giving us a little extra.
I will say I really wanted the whole time that extra scene happens where he's in Arkham. I was just please let the doctor he's talking to be Harleen Quinzel. And it's not. This might
have to be a whole different podcast, but I do not like Harley Quinn. I don't think she's ever been done well.
Don't talk to me.
She's every 14-year-old girl's idea of who they think they are, but she's just not a good character.
I disagree. No, I disagree.
Who's right? Who's wrong? Next time!
Dragon Ball Z! But yeah, we have that final scene, and it's... Because so much of the film is, not really happening, the dates and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you think the last scene really happened?
Which last scene?
Where he's doing the interview with the doctor, and then we see him walk out, and he's leaving bloody footprints, and then he's getting chased by guards, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, I think that did really happen, because the idea is that the Joker always escapes Arkham.
Yeah, that's true. I think you're probably right, but at the same time, I would love to rewatch this film and be I know this and this and this is not real. And this could be real, and this is real. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for the most ambiguous parts about what's real and what's not, I think the whole point is that it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah. And also what I think what is really interesting about this film is that, Joker is kind of the catalyst for everything that happens, the riots and all of this stuff and him getting followers, but it's he didn't do any of that on purpose.
Only kind of the catalyst as well. It was bound to break over something.
Yeah. He just happened to be the straw that broke the camel's back sort of thing. But it's all that chaos and he's getting so much credit for it, but he didn't mean to do any of it. He wasn't killing those guys for a political reason or anything like that. The murders that quote unquote matter, the ones that get the response are impersonal. They're done because those guys were just fucking picking on a poor guy and he had a gun.
No, they were happening because they were beating him up.
Well, yeah. You're right. Not picking up, beating him up. And when he first shoots those guys, I'm kind of the person who's fine, I don't care. Because it's a level of self-defense.
Yeah.
They're literally kicking the shit out of him. He could have died. You kick a rib, it punches along, anything like that. So, but because they're rich white guys who work for the Wayne Corporation, they have their whole lives ahead of them. They create this tension between the poor and the rich. Mm. But it's like nothing. So the murders that matter, quote unquote, to like the public and the world at large are the ones that he does like out of just like a reflect, out of a protective thing. And then the murders that are personal, like no one, like Penny's never going to be considered a murder. He's never going to be like brought in for charges on his mom because she was already in the hospital and blah blah blah. The guy he killed, like they could add that to his charge, but like no one gives a shit about that poor clown.
Yeah.
So like he does stuff, and he's the reason things are happening, but it's never planned. And I think that is what like quote unquote the joke, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's really brilliant writing, actually. Any last thoughts?
I don't think so. Let's give it a score.
Okay. You go first. 1 out of 10. Joker.
9.
Okay. I'm going to go an 8. Yeah. I think I'm going to go an 8. I think I do want to watch this movie again in the sense that there's a lot to take in and there's a lot I want to dissect. But at the same time, I don't really want to watch this movie again.
Yeah, we're kind of flipped on that because, like, for something like Midsommar, like, that's supposed to be a really uncomfortable movie, too.
It is.
And it is, and I don't want to watch it again because it gives me anxiety the whole time through.
And yet I want to watch it again. And maybe
Joker's
skip through parts.
Joker's pretty uncomfortable as a movie, but it doesn't, like, give me anxiety
It gives me anxiety the whole time. A lot of it. And I don't know if it was because I was kind of in maybe a weird headspace the time when we went to go see it, or if that is just the movie. I think it's probably a combination. But yeah, if you haven't gone to see Joker, and you still listen to this podcast, why did you do that to yourself?
What's wrong with you?
But go see it. If it's still in theaters when this podcast comes out. If not, wait till it's on DVD and stuff.
Or don't, because we already ruined it.
I think you could still enjoy the film. You are.
Yeah, but we ruined it.
We didn't ruin it.
They ruined it by listening.
They definitely lost a lot of the magic.
Alright, guys. We'll talk to you next time on
A Couple Reviews. Welcome back. We're going to talk about the video game Gone Home.
By Fulbright.
Yes, who have previously worked on the Bioshock 2 Minerva's Den.
Do you remember which one Minerva's Den was?
No, but I do remember the owl, like, that they reference, they have, like, a throwback to.
Was Minerva's Den a DLC?
Minerva's Den is a DLC for Bioshock 2 that they had worked on.
Which would explain why I don't know what it is, because I actually never played Bioshock 2.
Gone Home has a 7 out of 10 on Steam, which is pretty good.
Especially considering the amount of negativity surrounding the game when it came out.
Oh yeah? I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, there was a lot of backlash in, like, the gaming community against, like, the quote-unquote walking simulators, like Gone Home, Dear Esther, things like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't agree with it, but I do remember that was a thing, and it seems like generally people have gotten over that idea to some extent, excluding Death Stranding.
Yeah, I don't know. Death Stranding doesn't really fit the walking simulator description either. That's kind of its own thing, even though it is largely just walking around.
Carrying things.
It's not like just an exploration of a world.
Mm-hmm. I kind of, because I love stories so much in all mediums, that's why I like video games so much generally. I kind of love games like this.
Yeah. No, I like them quite a bit as well. I kind of want to try out some of the other, well-known ones from that genre. I mean, I own Dear Esther. I've never played it.
So it originally came out for computer in August of 2013. And then it's had a bunch of releases since then. It came out for PS4 and the Xbox One in January of 2016. And then it came out for the Switch in September of 2018. And then it came out for iOS December 2018.
Which is interesting.
That's a 5-year gap.
Yeah. Well, the Switch has been picking up all these remasters. Or not even remasters, just ports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and more phones are getting ported games as well.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But I
wonder how it controls on iOS.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably more like a point and click, honestly.
I mean, you still have to look around the world in a 3D environment. Yeah. I don't know. That'd be interesting to look into. We came to this game because I played it years and years ago. Ian and I have typically very hectic sleep schedules. We both suffer a little bit from, like, insomnia.
But we also both have depression, so we sleep a lot, and that screws up your sleep schedule as well. So Ian was asleep one night, and I was up in the middle of the night, and I don't know what made me choose Gone Home to play on your computer. My computer's in our bedroom, so to keep him from like waking up. I was playing out here, and so I was playing with like the lights off, and the game is spooky.
Yeah, I mean, the entire premise of the game is exploring an empty house.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and it's storming the whole time.
Yeah.
Thunder and lightning. So, like, with headphones, I was, like, so not tired. I was really into it, but I was getting, like, super creeped out. So maybe halfway through the game, I, like, stopped, like, saved my place and tried to go to sleep, and, like, an hour or so passed, and I just couldn't go to sleep, so I just got up and finished the game.
Yeah, because it only takes, 2 hours to finish?
Yeah, it takes about 2 or 3 hours to play. It's not an incredibly long game. We did it in one sitting, right?
Yep. Yeah, easy to knock out in one sitting.
Mm-hmm. So I played the game all those years ago, and all that time since then, every now and then I'd be like, "You should just play Gone Home. It's good." And he just like didn't because of other games and just whatever.
There's a lot of good games out there that
we all want to play it, and we just haven't.
I feel like this is a pretty common thing, but especially for me, it's so hard to play a new game because it's like the comfort of a game that you know is like unbeatable.
I go back and play a lot of games I really love, but Ian is a massive like person who you replay certain games so much. Like you broke the counter on your Dragon Warrior Monsters Game Boy Advance counter.
When you're a kid, you only have so many games, so that's kind of different. But yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I have gone back and played that game as an adult as well.
Yeah. We decided it would be a good video game for the review show because it's short. It seems like a lot of people are aware of it when it came out and stuff, but if you haven't heard of it or haven't played it, it's definitely worth a play. I feel like generally we review things we like, with at least the exception of King Kong vs. Godzilla.
We liked it.
We had a good time.
It just was bad.
And so we did it. Our normal play style often when we play games together is Ian is kind of in main control for any combat and a lot of walking around, and I make like choice decisions. Usually that's dialogue options. But in this game, because I'd played before and there are no dialogue options, Ian played it all by himself, and I was sitting there like watching him, and we were talking about it as it happened and everything.
Let's cover the main gameplay loop. Mm-hmm. I mean, the gameplay loop is just walking around the house and essentially just interacting with just about everything you can. I mean, you can interact with lots and lots of stuff, but pretty much you're looking for anything that looks like it could be interesting. You know, you're finding little shreds of paper, you're finding keys a few times, you're finding little hidden panels, and like the biggest thing for the plot is you're unlocking audio logs, essentially.
Yeah, and the like basic plot of the story is that Katie, the player character, left to go abroad for a year, and she comes home and her parents are like, the house is empty. There's like a note on the front door from her sister that's like, don't worry about it, I'm fine, I'll see you eventually. And her parents are gone, and we find out later like where they are and whatever. But it's a very creepy premise.
A lot of the things are like intentionally ominous.
I love it.
They had to have done that on purpose.
Oh,
like
yeah.
So many of the things you're like,
yeah. We're going to do, I think, a very, very, very mild at most spoiler review, because if you haven't played the game, we don't want to ruin it. Because it's a unique experience that's not very long. So it's set in 1995, which...
What a good year to have it set.
Like, Ian was born at the end of 90. I was born at the very beginning of 91. So we were, like, vaguely aware of the world existing at that time, but not really. But, like, I think there's something about having grown up in the 90s that, like, through some form of, like, cultural osmosis. I mean, like, I know about Riot Girls and, like, zines and a lot of stuff that gets referenced and brought up in this game that is very 1995 while never having been a part of it. Did you know about all of that stuff?
No, not really. I mean, I know, like, the biggest thing that I knew about is the terrible, terrible fashion of the 90s.
Harsh, and I disagree.
Absolutely heinous.
Which we see very little of, though.
Yeah, but it comes up on some of, like, the magazine covers and stuff like that.
There's a very 90s, like, girl magazine that's like a riff on the magazine Sassy. And the girl has like a little like tiny braid in the front and like very like powdery blue eyeshadow and like really shiny light pink lips.
It's
Yeah, like
so good.
Her bangs are braided. It's heinous.
I love it so much.
She's actually so the game has essentially like a dev mode where you can, or a commentary. It's a commentary mode. I don't know if you guys have ever played Half-Life 2 on the orange box.
I haven't.
But included with that, I don't think it was included with the base game, but I know on the orange box they included it. Half-Life 2 and I think the episodes as well had this. It's an identical commentary mode where you just play through the game like normal. But as you play through, there's these interactable nodes where essentially the devs come in and they commentate on the room you're in, or that little detail, or something
the music,
like that.
the item you interacted with, why they did that. So when we first played the game, and then I said, "Do you want to do it with commentary mode on?" Because there's a lot of layers to the kind of the plot. Not really layers to the plot. The basic plot is very, I feel like, what it is. But there's a lot of like uncovering kind of a little bit of like family secrets and history and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of little side plots that you find out about the history. You know, the history of the family, and like the weird nature of the house.
How her parents got this, like, I mean, it's a big house. And it has like a fucking like
it has a greenhouse attached to it.
It's like, really cool. You are Kitty Greenbrier, and you come back from a year abroad.
So all the audio logs are from the perspective of your little sister, who is,
Sam.
I think, 17?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam.
They make that, early on you can find a birthday card that's like, happy 17th birthday, to like, I think to kind of ease the player, who could be any age playing this, so like, you're not being you're not being super creepy by like finding out about this girl's love life. Because that's a big part of it. And so she starts, like, the first entry is saying, like, you know, I can't talk to you because you're not here, so I'm just going to essentially write this diary as if I'm talking to you. So she's telling you all about her year and her life and what's happening from, like, the start of them moving into that house, which happens after you've gone abroad.
And a good portion of those are, or at least a certain portion of those audio logs are mandatory to complete the game. Like, you get the logs as you do things to lead to the credits, you know, the game-ending credit sequence.
You pick
but
up,
also a bulk of them are completely missable.
Yeah, it's like you trigger the audio log by picking up an object to look at it, and then when you put that down, it will activate the audio log that's goes with that item.
And a good number of those are items you need to progress the game, but also, you know, a large percentage of them are just ones that you could completely miss.
Yeah. So much of this game is about exploration, and even beyond items that you can even, like, pick up is, like, posters on the wall kind of, like, can hint at their own stories. At one point you go in the basement and there's, like, you can, like, find out, like, her mom is Canadian. Like, there's, like, an old portrait of, like, her grandfather, and there's really good environmental storytelling, even without objects you can't pick up.
Yeah. Yep. And the game, what year did the game come out?
2013.
Yeah, so we're well in the age of the option to have really high resolution textures for certain items. And one of the game's main features is just the ability, when you're looking at something, to zoom in. And because important items have really high resolution textures, when you zoom in on them, you actually get quite a bit of detail.
Yeah, and they in the commentary mode, they talk about how all the because there's a lot of handwriting, because there's notes from your sister, there's notes between your parents, and they kind of tell you, oh, this is so-and-so's handwriting. We had to find really good mom handwriting, so we tried this. Well,
because the dev team is so small that there's more handwriting types than there are devs. Yeah. So they had to, like, get, like, all the devs have their handwritings in there.
Yeah.
Somebody's mom, I think,
I think the mom handwriting is someone's actual mom.
Somebody's wife is the cover of that really terrible 90s.
Yeah, the woman who did most of the textures, I think she said, or a lot of the assets.
I think she did environmental modeling. So, like, she did the stairs, she did the
curtains.
She did the wardrobes.
Yeah, so she did most of those, and then her wife did, I think, some of smaller parts of that, and then also is the face on that Sassy magazine we talked about earlier. Which is just, like, a cute, I love charming shit like that. Like, at one point, there's a board game, and it's like essentially like a Ouija board game, but not licensed.
The Ghost House one?
Yeah. And the commentary talks about how in the back, there's old-timey pictures, and they're actually like that woman's like ancestors that she found like going through her stuff at her mom's house. And just I love charming shit like that.
Yeah, there's lots of little personal stuff in the game from the devs, and then there's like a bunch of Easter eggs for like other games. A few BioShock things. Deus Ex, I think, is a throwback.
So there's a couple of characters in the game. I mean, you only really hear Sam, and you as Katie are the player. But you have parents. Terry's your dad. He's a writer. And his whole kind of thing that he's like, kind of quote unquote failed writer is how they described him on Wikipedia. Is he writes about like the JFK like theories initially, and then they become science fiction novels eventually. And his dad is so your grandpa, his dad, was like an actually respected author. Yeah. So like you get like a little story about your dad's publishing history and like all the struggles that can come with that.
And it should be said that this story has nothing to do with the main story. There's no audio logs about it. It's completely from environmental details, stuff you're picking up and interacting with.
Papers you can read.
Yeah. When we say interact, the main form of interaction is like you pick up an item, it goes into your hand, and you can like hold right click to rotate it and look at. Like I said, it's high resolution textures, so you can actually read the text on things like books and stuff, and actually get little fun details from it.
Yeah. And then your mom is Janice, who is a wildlife conservationist, which I kind of thought was cool. That she's kind of like a forest ranger. It seems like because that feels like a very like not stereotypical female job, and it's the 90s, and I was happy with it. One of the things about this game that I feel like has to be kind of talked about, even though I think neither of us actually enjoy that part of the game to some extent, is the music. Not the environmental music. That's fantastic. But like,
like the punk music.
The Riot Grrrl punk music made in garages.
That the little sister's like super into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they had the actual band, Heavens to Betsy, which was like a band at that time and part of all of that stuff. They have that actual music in it. Which I think is cool.
Sorry, Heavens to Betsy. I'm sure your music was important, but it sounds really bad to listen to.
I think at some point I would have really enjoyed it, but now I don't.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe it's because we're not 17.
That's fair.
Yeah. There's also like this old neighbor kid
from before they moved
from their old neighborhood. He kind of plays a small part in it.
She has a friend in school she meets, and that's like a big part of her year.
Lonnie. Yeah, just little side characters that you find out about, and it all plays into this one. I don't know. Would you call it a mystery, an event? I mean, the house is empty for a reason. You come here, what's going on?
It feels like a mystery because what happened? Where the hell is everyone? Katie does actually have one voice message, and that's how the game starts, where it's her calling from wherever she's abroad, and she's like, "Hey, my plane gets in at like super late because it was the cheapest. I'll get a cab. You do not need to come pick me up. Seriously, don't pick me up." And like, she shows up and no one is home. It's storming. It's like late at night. What the hell? We like a lot of horror movies. We like scary video games. This game sets you up to feel like you are going to be so nervous.
Like a horror game.
Yeah. Because I remember early on when you were playing it, you were like, "There's no jump scares," and I was like, "I promise you, there's no jump scares."
It feels like the type of game which would have,
like, even just like the fake out ones.
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, that's a mannequin in the sewing room or something.
Yeah.
But they don't really do it. But they really set you up to feel on edge, which I think is kind of perfect because if that actually happened to you in 1995, you don't have cell phones. You would be really uncomfortable.
Well, especially since I don't think that she's ever lived in this house.
They moved after she left.
Yeah.
So she's never even been there.
It's her family's house, but not really her house.
Yeah. It takes place in Oregon, which is like not super important, really. But I just like, I don't know. I think Oregon seems really cool. We've never been there.
Yeah. I don't think I've even passed through it.
I don't think so either.
Or flown over it.
I don't know the map well enough.
So we covered all the basics of the game. Is there any little notable parts that you want to point out before we go ahead and get ourselves to the review portion?
I think there's something... The voice acting of this game is really good.
Yeah, it does have it's a coherent, voice. Yeah, it has a coherent
You
voice.
You hear Sam throughout the whole game kind of telling you this story. And the voice actress is really great, and I did not write down her name. And in the commentary, you hear from the voice actress, and like, there's a part in the game that's like very emotional for that character, and the voice actress is like crying, and she's talking about having she cried when she read the script, and then they went out to lunch, and she was like, "Okay, I'm okay," and then she just cried.
It's
doing
clear that
it.
she had a very strong emotional connection to the
Sam.
character.
Yeah.
Which, as well as her being just a very, very talented voice actress, it also, it helped her performance. Let's I'm gonna Google her name really quick. Sarah Grayson.
We Googled her.
Yep. Shout out to Sarah Grayson.
She's
very,
fantastic.
very talented. Let's see, a little thing I want to shout out is, it was kind of a funny little thing when we played it the first time. Just the first thing that you must interact with to progress the story is the Christmas duck.
Not Goose.
Yeah, it's not a Christmas. It's a Christmas duck.
Good old Christmas
and
duck.
apparently, there's a Christmas duck as a default Unity asset.
Which was like the first one they messed with around like, can you pick it up? Blah, blah, blah. How does it work?
They liked it so much that they
Remade their own version of it.
their own one to keep it in the game. There's a little commentary just on the Christmas duck. And it's one of those things like the gnome from Half-Life 2 episode 1 or 2, where if you take the gnome from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, you can like put him in the rocket and send him off. There's a little throwback to that where
there's a little spot for the duck in like the last room.
Yep. He has a little nest in the very last room of the game.
You can return him to. But which is like such a funny thing because you can pick up things and I guess carry them around, but you don't have like an inventory.
No.
You can't like put that duck away for later.
You have an inventory for keys and like certain notes.
But I don't think you can.
But not for
like
items.
a duck.
Yeah. No.
I think the writing of this game feels really real and true to real life and to the time frame it's happening in 1995 from what I know of 1995, not personally, but from reading and being alive.
Mm-hmm. The writer of the game goes out of his way to say that, like, obviously he, like, just not even being a girl, like, to start off with.
Yeah.
Not having any...
Has never been a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah. Has nothing in common with the main character. He had to go out of his way to talk to people who actually went through what she went through, had to actually get a genuine experience of that. So, even though we never lived as a teenager in 1995,
that's true.
Neither did he.
Well, he might have, but not as a girl.
Yeah. But still went out of his way enough to
make it feels really
genuine.
real. Yeah. I believe in the commentary he has said that he's gotten a lot of feedback from people that the story is super important to them.
Which
that it feels very real, right? Yeah. There's some really great, because they can't use licensing. I always love this in games. We've talked about this a little bit in our Vampire the Masquerade review. I love like non-licensed
fake
shit.
brand stuff.
I love it so much. They have like there's the Ghost Story board game we talked about. This essentially kind of like almost feels like a Ouija board-esque thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's, what do they call it? There's the phone game, which I actually had growing up, and it's such a dumb heteronormative game. It's like you get this massive, because I was a child, so it would have been mid to late 90s, like big pink cell phone it's not real, that you push a certain number of buttons and you would hear like a boy's voice.
That's probably not even a cell phone. It's probably just a big pink fake phone.
Well,
cell phones
yeah.
weren't even
in
vogue yet.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But it was massive. And you would hear a boy and it'd be like, who likes you? And it was like a game and blah, blah. And I don't know if we got it from Goodwill or if I just lost everything but the phone. But I had just that phone for years, and I like could push the numbers and hear the voices. So that was a real game that they like made the fake version of.
God, the 90s was a terrible time.
Oh my, it's so heteronormative. It's just made for girls. Everything is pink. It's all boys. It's so stupid. And then there's just like, it's the Nintendo, right? That she borrows?
Yeah, I think it's like a Super Nintendo or something.
And so there's like 3 different game cartridges that you can like pick up and look at, and they all have like unique art for games that don't exist. And I really like all the art actually on them.
Mm-hmm.
And
I play those.
They feel very of the time and real, and I eat that shit up every time we see it in anything.
You eat shit?
Stop. Yeah, there's something about having to create like Sassy Magazine and stuff like that makes me super happy. Is there anything you wish this game had that it doesn't have, that like you would change or edit or add?
I thought the fighting moveset was pretty limited.
Actually, there is.
Where are you gonna go with this?
So, you do find a sheet of paper with Chun-Li's fighting moveset on it.
Oh yeah,
because they talk about playing Street Fighter.
Do they say Street Fighter?
I'm pretty sure they do, because I think you can mention it as long as you're not showing it.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know those trademark copyright laws very well.
I don't think even most devs do. That's why it's just weirdly generic things for things they could use for fair use. They just don't even want to deal with it.
That's fair. I will say I'm kind of surprised this game doesn't have any form of a sequel.
Doesn't need one.
No, it doesn't need one. But I think it would sell well. I think people would eat that up. I would buy it. I don't know. I guess because I'm so used to Hollywood and just like, if it makes money, we're making a sequel. This is one of the games that I wouldn't mind having some form of a sequel to find out what happens to the characters afterward.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it has to happen, but I'm saying I'm kind of surprised it hasn't, because it's clearly still popular if they're releasing it as of like, end of 2018.
Yeah. No, it's an important game for that genre. It definitely is. I mean, it's not the first or like super stand out for any reason other than like it's just very good at what it does. It's a proof of concept, or another proof of concept that this style of game can work and be very accessible.
Yeah. All right. Gone Home.
Final rating 1 to 10.
I'm gonna go an 8 because I played this game. Like I said, I first played this game years ago. I have such fond memories of it then. It played and it was exactly like I remembered in every good way. Like, it didn't deteriorate because I'd seen it before. And I think it's a super solid game. I recommend it. 8 out of 10.
I was thinking 7.5 or 8, but yeah, I'll give it 8 just because of how good it is at what it does. It's super not my genre of game, so like it didn't blow my mind or anything. But I can't really nitpick any problems with it. Yeah, I think it's a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah. I think it was the first this type of game I'd ever play, and I think so it didn't blow my mind, but it very much made me aware that type of game, that genre of game, is not only exists, but it can be very good, and it can be such a good way to tell a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I, again, as someone who, like, stories are everything to me, that made me really adore it.
Yeah, especially, it has a certain amount of linearity, but it doesn't really halt player exploration. Like, you don't have to have characters going down one corridor, interacting with nodes to tell a story. Just like, System Shock 2 is super open, but you still get... Actually, the story of System Shock 2 is ironically kind of presented in the same way as Gone Home. It's audio logs and environmental details.
Oh, that's cool.
Even though it's a very different game.
When we did finish, I do want to point this out because I think it's funny. When we finished, you were like, what achievements didn't we get? Blah, blah, blah. And one of the achievements is like a speedrunner achievement, and it's like beat the game in under a minute. So you just have to know where like this thing and this thing is and go do it. And Ian did that. But even the like commentary like the devs talked about, like, it's so great that there's like a speed run of this game under a minute.
Yeah, what a weird game to speed run, but I think it was even at GDQ
for a minute.
Yeah, it was like
I love it.
it's a super short run.
That's so cute.
I mean, they have a few other
like really short, really quick ones.
really short runs. Yeah.
I love that. Anyway, thanks for listening. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to help us out. Also, leave a comment that helps us be seen more, and like the video. Thanks.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
We're so cool, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're so cool, cool. We're so cool, yeah, yeah. Fuck you too, cool schmuck.